Madam Secretary, welcome to the City Planning Review Session on this extraordinarily beautiful July day. So, Madam Secretary, please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a City Planning Commission review session. Today is Monday, July 11th, 2016, and a quorum is present. The first item on the agenda is proposed site selection and city map amendment to facilitate Phase 3 of the Newtown Creek Nature Walk. Now, our presenter is Syed Ahmed from the Brooklyn office.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. City Planning Commission is also reviewing this application in their role as City Coastal Commission for consistency with WRP policies and goals. This is a joint application by the Department of Environmental Protection and Small Business Services and DCAS to demap a marginal street, Kingsland Avenue, and site select a portion of it to facilitate the construction of Phase 3 of the Newtown Creek Nature Walk. The project site is north of the Newtown Creek Wastewater Treatment Facility in the Greenpoint section of Community District 1, Brooklyn. The Newtown Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant is one of the largest in the city, occupying approximately 53 acres of land. The plant and the surrounding area is zoned M31. It is shown here. The area is developed with large city facilities such as Department of Sanitation's Marine Transfer Station, DEP's wastewater treatment plant, a private metal recycling business, and other industrial uses. The area to the west of the project site between Provost, which is right here, between Provost Street and McGinnis Boulevard is zone M11 and is developed with light industrial and commercial uses. This area is served by bus lines B24, 43, 48, and 62. The G Line's Greenpoint subway station is located within a half mile of the project site on Manhattan Avenue. In 1996, New York City launched an expansion plan for the Newtown Creek Wastewater Treatment Facility. As part of the New York City's law, a person for art, DEP, was required to provide a landscape nature walk along the edge of the Newtown Creek. The nature walk was to be constructed in 3 phases. Phase 1 was built in 2007, and it is shown here in green. It is open to public now. Phase 2 was approved in 2007 and will start construction later this year. It is shown here, right here, Phase 2. Phase 3 is proposed and is subject of this application. In early 2000, DEP undertook the construction of Phase 1, starting at Page Avenue and followed the edge of the Newtown Creek into Whale Creek Canal. The landscape path is 515 foot long, featuring several recessed seating areas, and is planted with trees, shrubs, and other plantings native to the Newtown Creek area. Phase 1 was completed in 2007 at a cost of $3.2 million and is open to public. Phase 2 was site selected and approved in 2007. It is a water-based extension connecting the existing Phase 1 and the proposed Phase 3. Proposed existing Phase 1 ends here, and the proposed land-based Phase 3 is right here, so it connects along the Wade Creek Canal, Phase 1 and Phase 3. A local artist, George Trackus, helped design Phase 2. It will consist of 3 60-foot-long bow-shaped vessels made of galvanized steel with connecting ramps and bridges. Handrails with wood detailing will run along the entire water-based part of the project, and lighting would be provided on both sides of the vessels. Phase 2 of the Nature Walk will start construction later this year and will be completed in 2018 at a cost of $8 million. Phase 3. This is also a view of Phase 2. Phase 3. Final phase 3, which is the subject of this application, will be built in the bed of the proposed to be DMAP marginal Kingsland Avenue. Phase 3 of the nature walk would be a small garden, 70 foot wide and 380 to 430 feet in length. The main entrance would be on Kingsland Avenue, right here. The main entrance would be on Kingsland Avenue, landscaped with trees, stone seating benches, and bicycle racks. A large boulder, which is shown here, will mark the entrance to phase 3 as it does at the beginning of phase 1 at Page Avenue. A blue granite trail will run through the middle of the garden, forming a spine lined by planting beds, shrubs, grasses, and perennials on both sides. Close to the middle of the garden, a circular shelter with a conical roof will provide additional seating. To the west of that shelter, a stone-paved area will feature 5 380-million-year-old tree fossils set among 5 ginkgo trees. At the western end of phase 3, the granite trail will drain into a planted rain garden with a small pedestrian bridge over it. Another shelter in the form of a boat shell will provide shade over a large picnic table close to the Whale Creek water's edge. Lighting for the site will be provided, and light fixtures will match those already used in existing phase 1. Phase 3 area will be bounded by a 10-foot high steel fence, while the southern edge will have a 10-foot high concrete wall separating the garden from the wastewater treatment facility. At the water's edge, a 42-inch high railing will match the rails installed elsewhere in the existing phase 1 of the nature walk. The proposed project was approved by the Planning Public Design Commission on March 2nd, 2015. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has shown no objection to moving forward with this project. The construction of phase 3 will cost an estimated $9 million and will be completed by 2019. In order to facilitate the construction of phase 3 of the nature walk, DEP and SBS are requesting an amendment to the city map requesting the elimination, discontinuance, and closing of a 100-foot wide marginal Kingsland Avenue between Whale Creek Canal and marginal North Henry Street. The proposed to be DMAP street is shown here in red dashed line. That is marginal street, Kingsland Avenue. Also requesting the establishment of a turnaround in the extension of public Kingsland Avenue within a portion of marginal North Henry Street. Public Kingsland Avenue is shown here in blue. It will extend into marginal North Street, and that's where an FDNY requested turnaround will be mapped. Furthermore, the city map change will reflect a 1996 mapping action previously approved by the City Planning Commission to reduce the width of the Whale Creek Canal by 30 feet on its western side. It is shown here in yellow, the dashed and solid lines. Marginal Street, shown here in red, in dashed line and in solid line, are often paved and mapped near the waterfront to promote waterfront commerce, but they are not necessarily open for general public use. In a related action, DCAS, DEP, and SBS are requesting site selection of a 70-foot wide portion of the DMAP street to facilitate the construction of phase 3 of the Newtown Creek Nature Walk. So this is a 70-foot wide portion of a 100-foot wide DMAP street, which is site selected for the phase 3 of the Nature Walk. The 70-foot wide portion of the street abuts the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant plant and would become part of Block 2525 under DEP's jurisdiction. The remaining 30-foot wide section north of the Phase 3 garden would be, it is that portion, would be under the jurisdiction of DSNY and would provide access to DSNY's warehouse, which is right here, on the north side of the project. Pursuant to a 2011 MOU, DSNY will provide access to DEP through the 30-foot wide section so they could reach their floatable control facility on the east side of the Whale Creek Canal, which is right here. In conclusion, the proposed project would accommodate the goals of the New York City Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, which seeks to expand public access to the waterfront on public and private land. The Nature Walk Phase 3 would also increase the amount of green space in a community that is underserved by open space and would provide additional access to the waterfront for residents and workers in the immediate area. Any questions?
Thank you, Syed. And in this matter, as I understand it, the commission is acting both as the Planning Commission and as the Coastal Commission, just so.
Yes.
Since the CAPA rules changes are wending its way to us as well. Questions for Syed? Ms. Deluz?
Hi, so I had two questions. Who maintains the nature walk? And the other question I have is about the 30-foot on the other canal. It's Whale Creek Canal.
Yes.
So is that 30 feet, is it related to the nature, is it just related to the nature walk, or is it really related to a prior action?
Okay, first, all three phases of the nature walk are under the jurisdiction of DEP, and they will maintain it. The second question, this was the width of the canal was reduced by 30 feet. That action took place in 1996, and City Planning Commission at that time approved it, but it was never shown on a map. So this map accommodates that action, which was completed in 1996.
Is that considered navigable?
They bring their boats in, but it is only for the use of DEP.
Okay. Was it ever considered for this to be parks versus DEP in terms of jurisdiction and maintenance?
Parks?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Knuckles?
Thank you, Syed.
You're welcome.
I'll probably have to wait till the public hearing to get this question answered, but I think this is has the potential to be a very nice public amenity. I'm just wondering how they will treat the element of fragrance. Those of us who pass by the West Harlem facility from time to time,
I think we have to wait until.
yeah, I assumed as much, but, you might advise them that,
It
at
depends
least
on
one
the day
commissioner
and
has
which
a,
way the wind is blowing.
well, for those of us who might want to visit, I just want to, but seriously,
Yes.
I'd like to know.
Actually, the existing phase 1 is quite beautiful and very nice, and a lot of people visit it.
That's not a joke, I mean, I'm serious.
no,
I'd like to know how
I will convey it.
you, okay.
Ms. Levin?
I also suspect that Newtown Creek and Whale Creek Canal have their own fragrance, independent of, so maybe we've got dueling fragrances.
Right,
But Syed, I was going to ask you about the cost of this, but I realize it's being done under the percent for art, and this was a $2 billion project, so spending $20 million on this, I guess the math works out. But why is it taking so long? Looks like when the Phase 2 was approved, it was expected that that would get done by the end of 2010. This one, what's been the delay? And then related to that, is the funding set aside? I guess the funding is coming out of the DEP budget?
Funding is in place. I think it was the demapping and going through the bar president's office. Alteration maps usually take a long time. And they were not sure, about how many actions there were going to be. So this application has been around, and but we received the bar president's alteration map at the end of June, and we are bringing it to certification.
No, I guess I was asking more about why it has taken Phase 2 so long to get from ULURP to construction, and whether the same delay might happen here. I mean, the faster this gets done, the better.
I think DEP will be able to answer that
Okay.
question. I will ask them. I will write to them today.
Good, thank you.
Ms. Efron, then Mr. Dwight.
Hi, the Phase 3 has a seating element, the kiosk that you've described, that looks as if it's
Yes.
virtually enclosed, unlike the
Many
Phase
actually-
1 and 2.
Actually, there are many seating, you can see here, this is at the end of the, garden towards the Whale Creek, and you see them here, and I will move back, they are against the wall.
Well, my question is really about that kiosk, because it looks unlike the other elements, as if it could be a place where somebody chooses to be and not be seen by others. So my question is about the security of this park and the hours, since it's not a New York City park.
I will ask DEP if they will have additional security, measures, whether they will have people, someone, there present, or I will ask
Thank you.
about the security.
Mr. Dwight.
I'm just going to go back to Commissioner Efron and Commissioner DeLuise's comments about parks. I think it's a beautiful public amenity, but eventually, once it's constructed, I'd love to see parks take it over. I know that they have the experience in managing a facility like this versus DEP. I'm not familiar personally of any DEP-run parks. So if you can get some clarity from DEP prior to the meeting, if they plan on turning it over post-construction to the Parks Department for management.
Okay, I will ask.
I suppose, and this goes to both of your questions, one issue is the security of the plant, so, which in some ways militates in favor of DEP security, and at the same time perhaps provides even more security than would normally be the case. But we will try to get clarity from
We will explore it.
DEP.
It is under DEP's jurisdiction in terms of property. It will become part of their property. And probably all of the monies to maintain it will come from DEP's budget. So I guess they would have to work it out with parks and transfer, not just the property, but the monies too, to maintain it. I will ask DEP.
Yeah, I'm more concerned with the operation rather than the transfer of the property to parks, per se.
Okay.
Any other questions about this? Not certified.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Syed.
Syed.
Let's now move to item number 2, page 69, proposed special bulk permit to facilitate the historic preservation and enlargement to a building in the Carnegie Hill Historic District at 1290 Madison Avenue. Now, our presenter is Stephen Johnson of the Manhattan office. Item number 2, page 69.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. This is a private application by ZMAC Company for the property located at 1290 Madison Avenue at the southwest corner of East 92nd Street for a special permit pursuant to ZR Section 74711 for a modification of bulk to facilitate the renovation and enlargement of an existing 6-story plus penthouse residential building with ground floor retail. The renovation and enlargement is for 8 dwelling units, and the ground floor retail and the residential floor area will increase by 4,585 square feet. As part of the 74711, the applicant is seeking 4 waivers. For height limit regulations, the street wall recess regulations, the side yard requirements, and for the inner court regulations. As you can see from our area map here, the project site is located in Community District 8 in the Carnegie Hill neighborhood of the Upper East Side. Central Park is on the west and moving eastward. Obviously, you have Fifth Avenue also known there, around there as Museum Mile, Madison Avenue, and Park Avenue. The building was completed in 1898 and is known as the Wellington, and is located right here within the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. The building is also located within the special Madison Avenue Preservation District, which was created in 1973 with the goal to preserve and protect the unique character and architectural quality of Madison Avenue and to enhance street life by promoting specialty shops at street level. The special district runs along Madison Avenue from 61st to 96th Street and coincides with the R10 zoning district. The project site is located within R10. This is just a blow-up of the previous map with a C15 commercial overlay. That's the hatch pattern along the store block fronts along Madison Avenue. The maximum permitted FAR is 10 and the maximum commercial FAR is 2. The special district also has additional street wall, recess, and maximum height regulations. The other avenues in Carnegie Hill are also mapped within R10, while the mid-blocks are mapped with the lower density contextual R8B districts. This is reflected in the building heights. You can see them in the red on the map, 4, 5, and 6 stories on the mid-block. And it gets higher along the avenues. Along Madison Avenue, you get, you still have some 4 to 6 story buildings, but you obviously have some 10 to 16 story buildings and a 32 story and a 38 story building. There are several prominent educational and cultural institutions in the area. The Guggenheim, starting on the south of the project area, is right there. The Church of Heavenly Rest is there. The Cooper Hewitt Design Museum is there. The Jewish Museum is right there, which is also in the landmarked Warburg House. Next to the Cooper Hewitt is the Spence School. The Dalton School is there. And right next to the Wellington is the Nightingale Banford School. They own the 2 properties in between the bigger Nightingale and the Wellington. There's 2 little properties that they recently renovated. Just south of the Nightingale in the 2 landmark buildings is the Russian consulate. We have project area photos here. You see a street view and an elevated view here of the Wellington that give you some context to the neighborhood and to the building. The Wellington has 6 stories plus penthouse with a building height of 89 feet. You can see the penthouse very clearly right there. The residential building directly south on Madison is 16 stories at 142 feet. That's right there. And the Nightingale Bamford School, the larger building there, is at 110 feet. 3 more photos, project area photos looking, photo 3 is looking west. You can see the existing penthouse from Madison Avenue. Photo 4 is looking south at the Wellington, which is right here. The taller building back there is a residential building with 38 floors, and across the street is the First National Bank, which is at 128 feet in height. At the bottom, we are looking north. The Wellington is behind that tree right there, and that's the Carnegie Hill Towers, and that building is 32 stories. And then right across, directly across the street is the Hotel Wales, which is 10 stories and 100 feet. So the Wellington was designed by A.B. Ogden and Company in the Renaissance Revival style. The building is faced with brick with a limestone base and limestone and terracotta trim. It contains a total floor area of 20,608 square feet with 17,359 square feet of residential use. There's 3,249 square feet of use group 6 ground floor retail. The total FAR is 5.6. The roof of the building's 6th floor is 74 feet in height, and the top of the penthouse is 89 feet in height. The existing building is vacant with the exception of the ground floor retail and the associated storage space at the cellar level. The building was originally constructed with 5 stores at the street level and apartments for 11 families. The residential lobby is on Madison right there. And in the 1980s, the building's original cornice, which would have been located right there, was removed and they put in the penthouse in the 80s. So the proposal would enlarge the footprint of the building to accommodate a new code-compliant stairway and elevator. This includes being ADA accessible and having 2 fully accessible means of egress. The existing stair and elevator are not large enough to be reconfigured in the existing location for code-compliant egress. So the new stairway and elevator are proposed along the western wall. They're being pushed back to the west lot line. The lobby can then be shifted with the main entrance on 92nd Street, which you can see here. This is the new main entrance right there. The ground floor service corridor that is right here along the southern lot line is the second means of egress and will be covered and provide a single service access point from Madison Avenue for the retail and for the residential. The project would also replace the existing penthouse with a new full 7th floor and a penthouse on top of that. At 85 feet, the height of the proposed 7th floor would be approximately the same height of the existing 84-foot penthouse. The proposed penthouse would accommodate the new elevator stairs, provide access to a common rooftop terrace, and would be set back from the 7th floor. This rendering shows the penthouse set back there, and you can see the new cornice. You can see that clearly also on the previous one, right there. The existing floor area would be increased from 20,608 square feet to 25,567 square feet. The lot coverage would be increased from 3,249 square feet to 3,624 square feet. The number of residential units would be decreased from 10 units to 8 units, and the amount of ground floor retail would increase by 375 feet. The amount of residential floor area would increase by 4,585 square feet. The applicant is also proposing a restoration of the east, north, and south elevations of the building to its original historic design, including restoration of limestone and terracotta ornamentation, new windows and window surrounds, and a comprehensive restoration of the storefront, including repair to the friezes and the capitals and columns. Your briefing package includes a number of documents from LPC, including a certificate of appropriateness, which is the LPC design approval of the drawings. So now we're on to the waivers. As I mentioned earlier, as part of the 74-711, the applicant is seeking to waive 4 sections of the zoning resolution for bulk modifications to allow for the enlargement and restoration of the building. The first waiver is section 23692, which limits the height of buildings with frontages of less than 45 feet. On the waiver plan drawing here, it is represented by the dots here. So this whole area is dotted on the top. The frontage of East 92nd Street is less than 45 feet at 36.8 feet. For corner lots bounded by at least one wide street, the building's height shall be equal to the width of the widest street which it fronts, or 100 feet, whichever is less. Madison Avenue at a width of 80 feet is a wide street which limits building height to 80 feet. So the proposed total building height of 95 feet to the top of the penthouse exceeds the maximum permitted building height. The height of the proposed 7th floor would be approximately the same height as the building's existing penthouse. Proposed setback would be, is shown here on the dashed. So the proposed is right here, the existing is the dashed line, and the proposed is right there. So you can see it is set back from Madison Avenue. The second waiver is for street wall recess regulations. This is represented by the purple X on our diagram. This section requires that a zoning lot with more than 100 feet of frontage and located within an historic district provide recesses above a height of 80 feet or above the level of the second story, whichever is lower, for a length of 25% of the street wall to a depth of at least 5 feet. The purple X pattern is 5 feet deep and 25 feet wide on our map here. With frontage on Madison Avenue at 100 feet, the site is required to provide recesses on the new 7th floor enlargement. The waiver is for the 7th floor enlargement only. The building's existing facade does not have these recesses along the Madison Avenue frontage, and the 7th floor facade has been designed and approved by LPC to replicate the same materials, fenestration, and symmetry as the lower floors, so the 7th floor facade is consistent with the existing facade of the rest of the building. The third waiver is for the modification of our side yard requirements, which is the orange lines here on the southern lot line. This regulation establishes that while no side yard shall be required, if any open area extending along a side lot line is provided at any level, it shall have a width of not less than 8 feet. The existing zoning lot contains an open area along the entire southern lot line with a width of 5 feet, which represents existing side yard non-compliance. The proposed project involves enlarging the first floor and eliminating the open area along the southern lot line up to a height of 1 story. The non-complying side yard would remain above the first floor on the southern lot line. The proposed addition of the seventh floor involves an extension of the building's existing walls along the southern and western lot lines. As a result, the remaining side yard noncompliance is increased through the increase in the height of the building's southern wall from 6 to 7 stories, so it's only for the 7th story for the waiver. The increase in the side yard noncompliance would allow for the 7th floor to be a straight extrusion consistent with the floor plate of the building, much like the front of the building. So our final waiver is for the inner court regulations, which requires that the area of an inner court cannot be less than 1,200 square feet, and the minimum dimension of the inner court cannot be less than 30 feet. This is represented by the blue diagonal lines on our diagram. The open area along the western lot line is considered an inner court. However, because the open area contains less than 1,200 square feet and has a width that varies from 2.5 to 5 feet, is considered a non-complying inner court. So the proposed project would enlarge the building's core along the western lot line and eliminate a portion of the open area in order to accommodate a code-compliant elevator and stairway. As a result, the proposed project would further increase the degree of non-compliance by further reducing the size of the inner court. However, the impact on the adjacent property to the west, which is the Nightingale Bamford, there's no lot lines, there's no windows on that building, so there's no impact for that other building. And that wraps it up.
Thank you, Stephen. Questions? That's it, Stephen. Certified.
Stephen, you also have the next item. It's a Manhattan non-New York post referral concerning the proposed renewal and modification to a previously approved special permit concerning an existing garage and reduction of parking spaces at 241-251 West 28th Street. Manhattan non-New York post referral. We're on page 111, item number 3.
So this is a private application by 249 West 28th Street Properties, LLC, for a modification and renewal to a previously approved special permit for a public parking garage granted by the City Planning Commission in August of 2011 pursuant to zoning resolution section 13562 and 7452. The property is located at 241 West 28th Street, Manhattan Community District 5. The applicant is proposing to reduce the number of parking spaces by 135 spaces, use elevators instead of ramps to move the vehicles around, and for a general redesign of the facility. The project was referred on May 9th, 2016. The project area is located in M160 zoning district in the Chelsea neighborhood. The development site is through a through lot between West 28th and West 29th Street and consists of blocks 778 and lots 13, 16, 18, and 66. This is our area map. You can see Penn South. The gray area is our project site. This is Penn South, this is Fashion Institute, and of course MSG, et cetera, there. We have our project area photos here that are highlighting a big hole in the ground. That's where it is. This is the bit right there. That's the south side of the site. So the previously approved special permit allows an intended public parking garage with a maximum capacity of 325 spaces and portions of a ground floor cellar and subcellar. Internal garage vehicle circulation will be provided via ramps, 139 double height stackers, and the remainder would be regular surface parking spaces. Access to the garage would be from 2 areas on 28th and 29th Street. This is the cellar and subcellar. What the applicant is proposing is to redesign the garage due to subsurface conditions. They were proposing to eliminate the subcellar, which would reduce the number of parking spaces from 325 to 190. They're going to relocate the curb cut further west, so it's facing the other curb cut. There'll be 2-lane exit and entrance on this side. Customer drop-off area and 19 bicycle parking spaces are right here. As in the previously approved special permit, the garage would include spaces for car share vehicles, subject to agreement with an operator, and provide a charging station for electric vehicles. That would be the one cellar. And this is an illustration of the proposed building, 20 stories, 210 feet. The applicant is proposing to develop the site with a new 20-story mixed-use building with approximately 407 dwelling units, of which 20% will be affordable dwelling units. The actions necessary to facilitate the project: the applicant is seeking a renewal of the parking garage special permit for a 3-year term. The special permit would have lapsed on September 21st, 2015 unless substantial construction had been completed. This applicant is also seeking the modification. As part of Section 7452, the zoning resolution requires the following findings: that the use will not be incompatible or adversely affect growth and development in the area, that the use will not create or contribute to traffic congestion, that the use will draw a minimum of vehicular traffic on local streets, that there are adequate reservoir spaces, that the street is adequate to handle the traffic generated, and that any roof parking will not impair the essential character or future use of the development, and any exempted floor space is needed to prevent excessive on-street parking demand. The applicant met those findings in 2011, and their current statement of findings is attached to the briefing package. The application was referred on May 9th. At the June 9th Community Board 5 meeting, the board voted 41 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstaining to approve both the renewal and application of the special permit without conditions.
Thank you, Stephen. Questions about this? Anyone? Okay, I will ask for show of hands for your assent to send a letter of approval to the Buildings Department. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, Stephen. You've really had a very easy run of it today. I think you're coming back on the 25th to explain the parking requirements.
I expect the same type of response.
Good luck.
Great, so let's now move on to item number 4, page 198. It's also a Manhattan non-ULURP post referral with respect to the proposed authorization to renew a previously approved special permit granted in 1960 concerning 196 parking spaces at 110 East 16th Street. And our presenter is Jamie Rojo. We're on item number 4, page 198.
Hi, good afternoon. So this project is for 110 East 16th Street. And the applicant, Union 16 Parking LLC, they're seeking an authorization to renew a previously approved special permit to operate an attendant public parking garage pursuant to Section 11-411 of the zoning resolution. Just a quick overview of the previous actions of this parking garage on August 1960, pursuant to Section 21F of the 1916 zoning resolution. The City Planning Commission granted a 25-year special permit to allow an 8-level parking garage for 154 vehicles. Subsequently, the application was modified to approve a special permit to enlarge this parking garage to include a 9th level and a roof to this garage for a term of 25 years. Since then, the garage has been renewed for 3 terms of not more than 10 years each, one in August 1986, again in November 1997, and again in July 2007, which was for the continued use of an attended public parking garage with a maximum of 196 spaces and 8 reservoir spaces. Just to give you some context of the site, 110 East 16th Street is here highlighted in the red right here. East 16th Street Union Square Park is to the east. It's also surrounded by Irving Place, which is located here. It's located in a C628 zoning district, and surrounding land uses are characterized by high-density mixed-use commercial and residential uses, in addition to a few public facility and institutional uses. To go over the parking garage floor plan, the project lot contains an area of 6,600 square feet with a frontage of approximately 65 feet along East 16th Street. There is an existing 80-foot, 9-story public parking garage on this site. And as I mentioned before, it contains 196 spaces with 8 reservoir spaces. Cars are traveling by an attendant parking, where 2 vehicle elevators are located at the rear facility in the back here. The garage operates 24 hours a day, and approximately half, or 120 spaces, are rented on a monthly basis. In connection with this renewal application, 25 bicycle spaces would be provided, and the existing curb cut would be narrowed at 35 feet to centralize access to the garage. Here are pictures of the existing 9-story garage as it exists today. As I mentioned, the The project site will continue to operate as a attended public parking garage with a maximum of 196 spaces and 8 reservoir spaces. If the authorization is approved, it would renew the special permit for another 10 years. The Community Board 5 has recommended approval with no conditions. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Jamie. Questions for Jamie? Ms. Deluz?
If this garage were to be designed today, how would the facade be different? Like, what would how would the requirements be different? Do we know? The community board didn't raise it, but just design-wise.
Yeah.
Just wondering if it's an opportunity to think about something, maybe not specific to this application, given the stage that we're at, but moving forward with similar applications.
Yeah, probably design it to be more in context with the surrounding uses.
Yeah. Who wants to look at a bunch of bumpers?
There would be some screening requirements for the parking spaces too, so there would be, wouldn't be able to see where the cars are parked. Which would be nice.
Seems like there's opportunity.
Ms. Levin and then Ms. Efron.
Yeah, that's essentially my question. There's no way we would approve a garage like this today, and it would seem that some pretty simple screening would bring about a huge improvement. And if we're renewing this for a whole nother 10 years, why wouldn't we encourage them to bring this? We've gotten a lot smarter about designing parking garages since the 60s. And this one really, this is leftover from the Jetsons. You know, and the whole street frontage is a curb cut, which it seems to me is being worked on a little bit. It's being narrowed some, so I don't propose getting into the whole layout. Remember, we did the, maybe, Jamie, you weren't around, when we did the post office garage on 30th Street. Remember, that one was an entirely a curb cut, and, you know, we required all sorts of, well, the staff required, and then we approved, endorsed, a whole lot of improvements in that garage in order to renew that permit. And I really, we shouldn't tolerate this kind of experience on our street frontage, especially when the screening, I think, is not that complicated to implement.
I'm all for that.
Ms. Efron?
My question was not to raise any concern about this particular lot, but whether or not a full package for a renewal of 10 years includes a violations review by either the department or the community board.
A violations review, I don't believe they submitted a DOB violations review. Yeah. You know.
So I'm just wondering if we rely upon the community board to do that? How,
We don't, if there's no reason to question it, we don't ask them. I mean, we can ask them if they've had violations, and they would then give us an answer, but there's no requirement that we ask them to do it.
I would just say operating history is one opportunity that we have with a renewal that we don't have with a new garage.
It wouldn't be DOB, it would be Consumer Affairs probably on these.
Right.
Correct. Thank you.
And actually, I do have also a question about, upon these renewals, is there a requirement for charging stations?
There is not. Not in
So-
the zoning resolution.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that when this was first brought here, before it was referred out to Community Board 5, I have to go back and look at my notes, but I don't recall any of these questions asked at that time. And so we really didn't provide, I'll go back and check, and we should all go back and check and see that
I don't remember.
It'll be on the tape.
it'll be on the tape. We will go back and check whether the questions about screening particularly was raised at that point. I don't recall it, but we'll go back and look at it. And also, we will look at just how much discretion upon renewal we really have here, but absent that, we will schedule it for a vote, but we will get back to you before that. Okay.
sorry.
Microphone. Yeah. Just says park.
Can't read anything in front of me, but I can see that.
Want to use my glasses?
Find a parking lot anywhere.
It's either one or the other, it's usually the case. Okay.
Okay.
We will get back to you in the next 2 weeks.
So our next item, item number 5, is a Manhattan pre-hearing action. Jamie is also the project planner for this project, and it's a proposed zoning text amendment to facilitate automobile repair and preparation in conjunction with automobile showrooms at 625 West 57th Street. Proposed zoning text amendment, and Commissioner Cerullo is recusing from this item. So we're on item number 5, page 219.
625 West 57th Street. The applicant is proposing a text amendment to the zoning resolution of section 96-34 and to Appendix A, Article 9, Chapter 6, which is within the Special Clinton District map, Area C12, to allow for automobile repair and preparation of vehicles for delivery in conjunction with automobile showrooms. Automobile showrooms and sales are permitted as of right on this proposed development site. Some background information. On the project site, there were several prior land use actions approving the development of this site. Starting with 2001, the commission approved a large-scale development, which essentially affect the zoning to allow this zoning district for the automobile showroom. Also approved special permits to allow for heightened setback regulations. And in 2004, there were also modifications to the special permits, which allowed for the construction of the Helena, which is also on the western part or the eastern part of the site. In 2012, there were approvals to facilitate the new mixed-use building, which is the Pyramid, or also now known as the VIA building, within the proposed project development area. In 2014, the commission approved the approvals for 606 West 57th Street, which is the building located adjacent to this building. The project site for discussion today is on 57th Street between 11th and 12th Avenue, highlighted in red here. It's located within the C47 and C62 zoning district. The area of the showroom with the text amendment that we are talking about will be located on the western portion of the site. And here are just a few project conditions. Surrounding land uses are characterized of mixed-use industrial and manufacturing uses with high-density commercial as well as residential uses. Here's a view of 58th Street on the back side of the project. So the development use, there would be 35,000 square feet of potential automobile showroom on the ground floor, of which 15,000 square feet of this would be used for automobile repair and preparation of vehicles, in which 58th Street would be used as the street in which the cars would enter through the existing loading dock. The changes to the text amendment would be made to Appendix A. As I mentioned before, use group 9 automobile showrooms and sales are permitted as of right in the existing C47 and C62 zoning districts, but repairs and services and prep are not permitted uses. This requested action would map the project area as a new C12 in the Special Clinton District and allow for automobile repair and preparation of vehicles in delivery within the C12 of the Special District, as highlighted here in red. As you can see, there's a new map C12 district there. Community Board, this has been referred out to the Community Board for, and they recommend approval of the project. And we recently have received news that the landlord actually has signed a lease to put actually a movie theater in this site. So an automobile showroom will not be going on this project site, but we are moving forward with a zoning text amendment for this. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jamie. Well, the,
Yes.
right, the applicant is moving forward with.
Yes, the applicant.
Just to be clear, do you know, Jamie, in the surrounding area, how many sites, this is Automobile Row, really, how many?
Yes.
How many automobile showrooms also have authority to have repair shops as ancillary uses for prep and the like?
Yeah, so right now, there are 606 West 57th Street, which is the site adjacent to the south. They are allowed for automobile repair, and they also have a residential component associated with it. There is also a site on 53rd and 11. Yeah, it's the Mercedes house below. They also have the same function capabilities. Those are ultimately the two sites that have those approvals.
Questions? Ms. Levin?
And I think, didn't we do the same text as part of Riverside South? Just, it's under construction, and I don't know that a dealership is really going in there, but we talked about the same issue. Just on the other side of the Con Ed plant, the M3 too. Which is,
To allow for repair function.
yeah, the plan was for there to be an auto dealership, and I'm recalling that we also did the same text adjustment there too. I could be wrong, but.
Okay, I'm not sure. I could follow up and just to clarify.
It's just so amazing to me that Auto Row has come back. You know, it was 10 years ago, it was dying, and everyone was wanting to keep it there, and now it's back just big time.
A very high-end autos. Any other questions for Jamie? Okay, hearing Wednesday.
We'll ask Commissioner Cerullo to come back into Spector Hall. And the next item is item number 6. This is also Jamie's project. Proposed notice of intent to acquire office spaces for the NYPD World Trade Center Command Substation at 40 Rector Street. This is a pre-hearing item. We're on item number 6, which is 265.
40 Rector Street. The applicant is the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, and they are proposing to acquire approximately 4,500 square feet of office space to be located on a portion of the ground floor on 40 Rector Street in order to facilitate the relocation of New York Police Department's World Trade Center Command Substation in Lower Manhattan. The World Trade Center Command Substation is currently located at 130 Cedar Street, and the landlord does not wish to extend their lease, which currently ends January 1st of 2017. Some context for the area: 40 Rector Street is located between West Street and Washington Street. As I mentioned, the NYPD will be occupying a portion of the ground floor that is closest to Washington Street. It's also located within the 669 zoning district of the Special Manhattan Lower District. It's situated just south of the World Trade Center site, and nearby access of transportation is located by the 145ER subway trains as well as the PATH stations. The World Trade Center site, or the World Trade Center Command Substation site, provides a counterterrorism resource for NYPD, and the proposed site will act as a command center for the Counterterrorism Division. It will operate largely as an administrative office for meetings and conferences, as well as interviews and monitoring of security cameras. Just some, additional information. They will also have a reception area, muster area, conference room, command room, a restroom and break area for the police officers, There will be a total of 6 civilian employees on the site and approximately 40 NYPD officers per shift. Arrests will continue to be processed at one precinct located at 16 Erickson Place, and staff working at 40 Rector will be separate from the one precinct personnel. And the site will be in operation 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. The request in action is notice of intent to acquire office space submitted by DCAS, submitted pursuant to section 195 of the New York City Charter to make use of the property located at 40 Rector Street. And the requested action would facilitate the relocation of NYPD's World Trade Center Command Substation. Any questions?
Mr. Knuckles?
Will there be a separate entrance for this operation as opposed to the primary entrance for the office?
Yeah, so the primary entrance for the office, as you can see in this picture, is located on Rector Street, and the entrance for NYPD will be located on the side on Washington Street.
Thank you.
Ms. Efron?
There was some discussion at certification about how the street front windows would be treated, considering it won't be retail, it'll be an office and meeting
Yes.
space. Will the police department come prepared to discuss, or whoever, DCAS come prepared to discuss that tomorrow?
Yes, they will be prepared to discuss, and I believe there will be window treatment, they will be discussing that.
Was it?
This, I believe, is a different site. This is the first time
Yeah.
Oh,
you're seeing
This,
this.
This actually is coming
Yeah.
back in a new site. I think you're referring to the old site.
Exactly.
that's right.
you will recall,
But
yes.
we have the same issue and the same
Yeah.
condition.
Ms. Levin, then Mr. Dway.
But related to that, it was only a year ago that we approved the ULURP for the space that Cheryl is remembering.
Yes,
That
at
is
90
correct.
West.
And what happened? Why?
The lease fell through.
Yeah, the lease fell through at 90 West Street.
Okay, so they never moved in?
They never moved in, and, yeah,
So this is a do-over?
yes.
Yeah. You will hear from DCAS.
Okay, so it's
presumably on
not, it's
Wednesday.
not that they moved in, the landlord decided they didn't want to renew, because the phrasing here is they didn't want to renew, but
No, yeah,
it's
so-
just that we couldn't, and the city couldn't conclude a,
Yeah,
deal
so they
for-
exactly. They remained at 130 Cedar Street, and they never moved into 90 West.
okay.
Mr. Dway.
So my question would be, and I was confused as to whether or not I've seen this before. My question would be, why retail, why ground floor space when it's operated largely as an administrative office for meetings? Why not take less, less expensive space on a higher floor or, different building perhaps? Why is NYPD, what is the benefit to NYPD to operate out of a retail space, ground floor space, rather?
Well, this building is actually all office condos, so there is no retail in this building.
Perhaps another building in the area might suit them, would be less expensive to the city.
I think that's a good question also for DCAS, because as you recall, when we were discussing 90 West, that was also a programmatic issue for the police department at that time in terms of its relationship to the World Trade Center site itself. But it's,
Yeah,
I think, an issue for DCAS. I think the NYPD wanted ground floor space.
Right, and I couldn't remember the reason then from that meeting, so. But I guess it's a new space, so it's a new question.
yes.
I get to do over too.
Sort of the reverse of old wine in new bottles, in a certain way. Mr. Cirillo?
Oh, no, I was just saying that I mean, it's obviously a good question and one that should be posed, but I could understand a ground level, the desire to be on street level if this is going to serve as a command center, so you're not dealing with stairs and elevators and other issues at a point in time where they may be required to kick into high gear, that's all. I mean, that's just my take on it, but I
Yeah.
still think it's a valid
I
question.
it really is a question for DCAS, a public hearing on
Sure,
Wednesday.
absolutely.
That's, and, my guess also is it's less disruptive for the other tenants as well. But, any other questions for Jamie? Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
So we're now moving to item number 7, page 271. It's also a Manhattan pre-hearing application with respect to a proposed notice of intent to acquire office space for the NY State Court of Appeals at 230 Park Avenue. And our presenter is Sarah Elmore. We're on item number 7, page 271.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman Weisbrod, Commissioners. This is an application by the Department of Citywide Administrative Services in partnership with the Office of Court Administrative Offices to acquire approximately 5,000 square feet on the 15th floor at 230 Park Avenue between 45th and 46th Streets in the Special Midtown District within Manhattan Community District 5. The requested action will facilitate the relocation of the newly appointed Associate Judge to the New York State Court of Appeals from temporary space at 185 West Broadway to 230 Park Avenue. This Associate Judge was appointed by the Court of Appeals by Governor Cuomo on January 20th, 2016, and was confirmed by the State Senate on February 8th, 2016, to fill the vacancy created by the retirement of the Honorable Susan Reade, who was located in Albany. The Court of Appeals is the highest court in the state of New York, and it hears appeals from the appellate divisions. The newly appointed Associate Judge is presently located in temporary privately owned space provided by the New York Law School at 185 West Broadway. And the proposed office site is located within the Grand Central Subdistrict Core in the Special Midtown District of Manhattan. The surrounding area's built form is characterized by high-rise mixed-use and commercial buildings. This site is within a C53 zoning district with an as-of-right commercial and residential FAR of 15 and 10 respectively. Zoning districts within the surrounding area include C5 2.5, C5 3, and C6 6. The site is just north of the MetLife building and the Grand Central Terminal. Grand Central Terminal is a Landmarks Preservation Commission designated individual landmark. The surrounding area is served by the 4, 5, 6, and 7 subway lines, the shuttle to Times Square, Metro North commuter rail at Grand Central. There's also a multitude of bus lines that serve the area. The proposed office space is located on the 15th floor at 230 Park Avenue. The building is a landmarked 34-story office tower known as the Helmsley Building. The building is located within walking distance of 2 other associate judges to the New York State Court of Appeals at 420 Lexington Avenue and 570 Lexington Avenue. The building also houses the chambers for the Chief Judge to the New York State Court of Appeals on the 8th floor. OCA proposes to lease approximately 5,000 square feet of office space on the 15th floor for use as a home chambers and office space for the newly appointed Associate Judge to the New York State Court of Appeals and staff. The space is currently vacant and in good condition and will require a minor office space build-out to make it suitable for the judge's needs. Once the build-out is complete, the proposed office space will house approximately 7 full-time staff. A notice of intent to acquire office space was submitted by the Department of Citywide Administrative Services pursuant to Section 195 of the New York City Charter for use of property located at 230 Park Avenue. The requested action will facilitate the relocation of the newly appointed Associate Judge from temporary space at 185 West Broadway to 230 Park Avenue.
Thanks, Sarah. Mr. Dweck.
So, question about the size of the unit. It's 5,000 square feet, 7 full-time employees.
Yeah.
I do recognize that he would definitely need a conference room, and I'm not sure, a waiting room, but perhaps people come in there. So if we can get some kind of clarification on the need for such a large space and the breakdown of the space.
Okay.
Additionally, is it commensurate with other appellate judges' chambers or offices? And if it meets the same criteria, or this is just the space that's available, and there's a specific reason why he wants to be in 230 Park Avenue, perhaps like you mentioned, the chief judge is there, so.
I think an idea is that they definitely want the associate judges to be as close to the chief as possible. So, but I can look in to see what the other space sizes that the associate judges have as well as what the chief judge has.
Thank you so much.
And we've, Mr. Cirillo.
I just want to note that clearly Commissioner Dweck is not a practicing attorney in New York State.
You know, after 4 years in court.
Clearly, Mr. Dweck's case did not go up in appeal, at least.
Or it's not going.
Or it's anyway, we've had a number of these before us, and I'm sure we'll hear from DCAS on Wednesday. But these Court of Appeals judges do end up with very capacious office space,
Right.
generally speaking.
Word. Oh, capacious. Oh,
Well, not rapacious. Ms. Levin.
Well, and to that, could we get a reminder about the relationship between the state and the city on this? Isn't this one of those deals, I mean, these are state offices, but the city,
They've
what's the
done-
city's role in facilitating the securing of this, and who pays for it? And this is really, this isn't a,
Historically, the state had delegated to the city.
Right.
The responsibility to find leasable space within the city of New York. The presumption was, at least, I go back 2 decades on this, that DCAS would know better the marketplace than OCA.
okay, but the cost of maintaining this space is borne out of the OCA budget, I would think, not out of a city budget?
Right.
Yeah, I believe that's the case, but again, we'll hear
We'll
from
find out.
DCAS
Okay,
on,
good.
I think this
Yeah.
is a special delegation to
Correct,
the
yeah,
city.
so I was hoping DCAS could just remind us how that works.
Any other questions to Sarah about this? Mr. Dwek? Okay, well, public hearing on Wednesday.
Our next item is on page 278, item number 8, Bronx non-ULARP post-referral with respect to proposed authorization, a minor modification to a previously approved large-scale community facility development to facilitate a stairwell and elevator and emergency egress for Montefiore. On item number 8, page 278, our presenter is Viton Horstman from the Bronx office.
Good afternoon, Commission, Chairman. This is a post-referral for the Montefiore Medical Center, which is seeking authorization to allow permitted floor area and lot coverage to be distributed without regard for lot lines within the Montefiore large-scale community facility development, and a minor modification to modify the existing large-scale development site plan. The proposed actions would allow for the construction of a new stair and elevator at 3411 Wayne Avenue, thereby facilitating the conversion of the building from hospital staff dwelling uses to accessory office uses. The large scale is located in the Norwood neighborhood of the Bronx Community District 7. The large scale is within the R71 and R5A zoning districts. The R71 allows mid-density residential and community facility uses. The R7A allows 1 and 2 family detached residences and community facility uses. The Montefiore large scale, which covers an area of 7 blocks and approximately 17 acres, currently contains just over 3 million square feet of zoning floor area. The large scale was established by a city planning commission, by the commission in 1964. The proposed project is located on parcel F and would entail the enlargement of an existing 12-story building at the Wayne Avenue site in order to construct the stairwell and elevator, which is located here. The conversion will allow for emergency egress with associated modifications to the parking lot. The enlargement would add 4,752 square feet of floor area and would increase the lot area by 410 square feet. The transfer of the lot area and floor area and lot coverage would come from parcel C within the large-scale development. On June 7th, the Housing and Zoning Committee sent a positive recommendation to the full board that was unanimously approved on June 26th.
Any questions? Not, this will be scheduled for a vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jitan.
Now we'll move to item number 9, page 303. It's a Brooklyn non-ULARP post-referral action with respect to a proposed minor change to the Brooklyn Center Urban Renewal Plan bulk controls to facilitate a commercial building at 420 Albee Square. Our presenter is Anand Amin from the Brooklyn office. Item number 9, page 303, Brooklyn non-ULARP post-referral.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an application by the New York City Department of Housing, Preservation and Development seeking a minor change to the Brooklyn Center Urban Renewal Plan. The proposed change would remove a supplementary building bulk control, which requires a setback along a shared lot line from the proposed project site in order to facilitate a 37-story, 378,000 square foot commercial building in downtown Brooklyn, Community District 2. The proposed project site is within the special downtown Brooklyn district and is mapped with the C6 4.5 zoning district, which allows a range of high-density, mixed-use residential and community facility uses of between 10 to 12 FAR without a max height limit. The surrounding areas within the downtown Brooklyn Central Business District. The MetroTech Academic and Office Campus is just to the north. The 1.9 million square foot retail and residential mixed-use City Point project is just to the east, and the proposed 1 acre Willoughby Square open space is directly adjacent to the north. The area is extremely well served by transit with the 2, 3, 4, 5 A, C, F, B, Q, R, and G lines all within 4 blocks, and a number of bus lines running through the area. The proposed project site is Site 19B in the Brooklyn Center Urban Renewal Plan. The proposed development site is approximately 18,500 square feet, located on a regular T-shaped site, immediately adjacent to and south of Willoughby Square. The proposed building is a new 37-story, 575-foot-high office building consisting of approximately 378,000 square feet. The proposed development would be as of right under existing use envelope and bulk controls, but for the building bulk controls on Site 19B pursuant to Section C3B of the Brooklyn Center Urban Renewal Plan. Section C3B requires any building fronting Willoughby Square to have a 15-foot setback after a maximum street wall height of 85 feet. In order to facilitate the proposed development, the applicants are requesting a minor change to the URP to remove the setback requirement on this site. The applicants have stated that an office development on the proposed development site, given its size and irregular shape, requires relief from the setback control to achieve reasonable Class A office commercial floor plates. The applicants are proposing a typical office floor plate of nearly 11,000 square feet. However, the required setback would reduce the floor plate by 900 square feet, which the applicants have stated reduces the efficiency and viability of the proposed development. In addition to the constraining development site, the applicants have stated 3 other reasons that Site 19B should no longer be subject to the setback control, including modifications to the Willoughby Square design, which removed a private drive along the southern border, a reduction in the number of acquired sites fronting Willoughby Square, which halved the frontage along the open space, and evolving street wall conditions in the surrounding area, which have strayed from the original uniform datum of 80 to 85 feet envisioned in 2004. The project was referred out for informational purposes to Community Board 2, which unanimously approved the project. Additionally, EDC, the applicant representatives for HPD, have submitted a letter addressing questions brought up from the commission at certification, clarifying the floor-to-floor heights breakdown, the industry mix and tenants the building expects to attract, and additional information on why the setback would be necessary, or the setback would negatively impact the feasibility and viability of the project. It should be noted, as indicated by the floor-to-floor heights, that the building height is 575 feet, whereas the application and environmental review analyzed a 675-foot building. In conclusion, in order to facilitate the proposed development, the applicants are requesting a minor change to the Brooklyn Center Urban Renewal Plan to remove Site 19B from the list of sites that are subject to the setback control. The proposed development would introduce a new 37-story, 378,000 square foot office development with ground floor retail. 420 Albee Square will be the first ground-up office development in downtown Brooklyn, achieving a key goal of the 2004 Downtown Brooklyn Plan. Thanks.
Thanks, Anand. Any questions about this? Ms. Delos?
So the total amount of square footage that would allow to be added as a result of this is what?
So there's nothing in this action that adds floor area to this project. But there are air rights coming from Willoughby Square that were previously already approved for the transfer.
I guess by not requiring the setback requirement, that's what I mean.
Oh, so can you repeat the question?
So what's the total square footage that will be allowed by not requiring the setback requirement?
The total,
Am I making sense to other people? Maybe not just
No,
me, no?
It could go higher.
It's not,
Yeah.
yeah,
The overall square footage is how much?
378,000.
That includes that includes not providing the setback.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you'd subtract.
900 per floor, how many floors? And that'll give you the.
so
Okay.
it's roughly 37, slightly south of 37,000 square feet, about 10%, but the total amount of what was approved here previously in terms of height
Right.
really doesn't add, as I understand it, add floor area. It's really just making the building configuration better. Yeah,
Okay,
it's a lower height building than
Right.
what had
And
been
having more
previously
slot.
approved. And again, this is, I think, from everyone's perspective, the first ground-up office building in downtown Brooklyn, which is a big,
what was the original intention?
right.
Right, well, I guess
And-
that's,
and
that's
to make
part of
this
like where my
viable.
question was going. I mean, and I'm kind of I'm understanding what you're saying. Obviously, I think ground-up office is what folks thought was going to happen, obviously, in downtown Brooklyn, and that isn't what happened. So I guess my only thought or concern was, if in the future, the owner would like to reposition the building as residential, if this had been a conversation about residential, it doesn't sound like it would have triggered the MIH conversation. I just want to make sure we're thinking about that as a possibility, just in case it were to ever happen.
Understood, that's again, understood. So any other questions for Nand on this? If not, I will ask for a show of hands to send a letter of approval to HPD, the overseer of the urban renewal plan. Unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Let's now move to item number 10, page 341, Brooklyn pre-hearing with respect to the proposed Dumbo Business Improvement District. Now, presenter is Barry Dinnerstein, who's Deputy Director of Housing, Economic Infrastructure Planning at the Department of City Planning. Item number 10, page 341.
Good afternoon. This is a application to expand the existing Dumbo bid, which was established in 2005. The Dumbo bid is roughly the area between the Brooklyn and Manhattan Bridge, west of the BQE, heading to the water, and it includes Brooklyn Bridge Park. This particular application adds 11 properties, 11 properties to the bid, 5 of which are in a new development known as Dumbo Heights, which are being developed for office space by the Kushner organization. These are 5 properties that were formerly owned by the Watchtower and Bible Society and are now being converted to office and retail. 5 additional properties are publicly owned, which are being added to the bid because it is contemplated that they will be part of the Brooklyn Strand Greenway project, and this will allow the bid to participate in both programming, design, and maintenance of the space. There's one small commercial property that also is being added to the bid, but that's relatively minor compared to the larger Dumbo Heights properties. The proposed Dumbo bid has about 800 businesses, 100 retail businesses, about 6 million square feet of built area, about 15% of the square feet is in residential. Most of that residential was triggered by a series of rezonings done from the late 90s into 2006 or so. As you can see, 31 rental properties, 2,200 units, 21 condominium units with 1,300 units. The proposed expansion adds 5 loft commercial properties, which presently have about 19 commercial tenants signed. It's about 1.2 million square feet of office and retail space. And then there are 5 publicly owned properties that are being added near the Brooklyn Bridge. Right now, the bid provides area sweeping, maintenance of public space, they do events, they have free area Wi-Fi. Presently, they're working with the city on a big capital project that's going to upgrade water and sewer lines. They're going to reconstruct some streets, and they're sort of acting as a go-between between the city and the businesses and property owners. One of the reasons for expanding into the Dumbo Heights area is that the Dumbo Heights developer has done a number of streetscape improvements, and you can see some of them in the rendering. It's a little small, but you can see some of the planting and sidewalk widenings that have already been accomplished, and the bid has agreed to maintain them. The improvement was done at the expense of the developer. One of the main focuses of the bid is beautification, management of the public spaces. There's about 40,000 square feet of public space in the district. In addition, there's about 15% of the space is within Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is within the bid, at least the Dumbo portion of the park is within the bid. And presently, there are 2 major developments happening in the park. One, John Street, which is a residential development, and the Empire Stores, which is about 500,000 square feet of office and commercial use. And as those both are under construction now, and as those come online, they will both contribute to the bid. I have just a couple of pictures of what goes on in the bid. This is after Hurricane Sandy, where bid staff was helping with cleanup. This is, I believe, World Cup, where they invited people to come into this huge, beautiful space underneath the Manhattan Bridge to come and watch the games. They also had concerts there. It's a very nice space, program and maintained by the bid. The bid has been fairly successful. Its present budget is about $625,000. That will rise to $835,000 under the expansion. It's about $220,000 projected for sanitation, $240,000 for marketing, $50,000 for commercial. Can't read my own handwriting here. Administration, $310,000, and $15,000 for contingency. The bid levies a formula that's based on assessed value and square footage, total square footage for commercial use, 50/50. Residential property pays $1. Public and not-for-profit don't pay at all. It works out to about 21 cents per square foot. Typical rents in the bid are on the order of $40, $50 a foot and continue going up. So it's a pretty small amount. The property owner in the bid expansion area have expressed support for the expansion of the bid, as have all the commercial tenants that have been signed to date. Committee Board 2 voted, it's exec committee voted 10-0 to support the expansion of the bid.
Thank you, Barry. Questions for Barry? Ms. Deleuze.
Barry, I guess when we have the hearing on Wednesday, if somebody could drill down and tell me what contingency is, considering it's 15% of the budget, that would be helpful. And then, considering that, especially now with the expansion, the proximity to, public housing to the east increases, I'm just wondering if there's any particular effort to connect public housing residents to employment opportunities that exist, or will exist.
We actually had this discussion a few minutes before, and
Okay.
the bid is actually prepared to explain
Great,
what the program is.
great.
Any other questions for Barry? Okay, public hearing Wednesday.
Let's now move to item number 10, page 353. It's a Queens for hearing application with respect to the proposed acquisition of property to facilitate the continued use of a library at 3132 Union Street, the Mitchell Linden Library. And our presenter is Debbie Carney, who is Deputy Director of the Queens Office. Item number 11, page 353.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a site acquisition to facilitate the continued operation for the Mitchell Linden Library located in Community District 7. The library owns the property. They purchased the property in 2011, and the library has been there since 2012. The board waived their public hearing. The borough president recommended approval, no conditions.
Any questions? Thank you, Debbie.
Debbie also has the next item, item number 12, page 361. It's also a Queens pre-hearing application with respect to the proposed acquisition of property to facilitate the continued use of the library at 144-20, 243rd Street, the Rosedale Library. Item number 12, page 361.
This is a site acquisition, again, to facilitate the continued operation, but this, of the Rosedale Library in Community District 13. The Queensboro Public Library owns that property. They purchased it in 2012. The library has been there since 1962. The board recommended a unanimous approval of this application, and the borough president also recommended approval.
Any questions? Ms. Efron?
Sorry. Just because the footprint is 7,000 square feet and it's a single-story building, is this a site that the city would consider for some sort of affordable housing up above?
No. No. This is entirely for the library use.
Any other questions for Debbie? Commissioner Levin?
Yeah, Debbie, I have a question that actually relates to both of these library applications, and that is, I understand that there's this arrangement that the city will take over these spaces and own them. What coordination is there between the library system and the city when the library system commits to purchasing space, makes a capital commitment, gets entangled with the property, and then gives it over to the city? Is there a discussion that goes on between the city and the library at that time?
In these cases, there was none, and it was because of the time constraints that they had. They had to act quickly. The decision to make that purchase, however, was made by their board of trustees.
But counting on having
But there was no
city
coordination with the
support,
city.
oh, it just happened?
Mhm.
Because I can see how that would back the city into a, you know, significant commitment.
Yeah,
You know, under the terms of the agreement, that,
Mhm.
the ancient agreement.
the representative for Queensboro Public Library will be
Yeah,
here
if they could
to
describe that process to
address
us a little
this
bit, that would be helpful.
on Wednesday, as well as Deacons.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Dweck?
I was just going to comment to Commissioner Levin's concerns. Being on a library board of Brooklyn Public Library, so all these stakeholders are represented on the board generally, so they do it in tandem usually with the way the city is thinking. Everything is pretty much ping-pong back and forth, come to a consensus. So there might not be an official input, but there's certainly a direction that goes along with decisions, and all the stakeholders do have representatives on the board.
Just out of curiosity, this is city capital funds? Will city capital funds go into this? Yeah.
I believe this was the library's budget. Yeah, this
But
came out of
is
the
that-
library's budget.
Out of private funds or out of city capital funds?
Multiple.
Right. So is that done through a, frequently when that's done, EDC will, or DDC will oversee that. but that's not the case. Who will actually oversee the construction?
I'm not clear on that. But there's no construction here.
It's just an acquisition, right? Here.
And the city capital fund's gonna come from the borough president, from the city
Yeah.
council member, from the mayor.
So I'm not quite sure, and the entanglement that, since it's a straight acquisition, the issue, I mean, it really comes up in cases where there's a construction budget.
But the first one was new construction.
Right, and in those cases, the first one, frequently that's handled through either an EDC or EDC project agreement.
Look, and I'm not questioning at all that it should happen. I'm just
Right.
hoping that maybe the library representatives can explain to
Right.
us a little bit more about how the timing and coordination and whether there was the involvement.
Right, I mean, the real question is who's overseeing the construction project and who signs off on the budget? Ms. Reade?
Just for both of these, I understood them both to be properties that the library had acquired, and now the city is acquiring from the library.
That's right.
Was there any construction involved in either
No,
of these?
no.
So there's no construction?
They're existing buildings.
They're existing, right, the continued operations of the
Right.
existing facilities. Now, is the city paying the library the same price that the library acquired the property for?
That I don't know.
Okay, okay, we'll find
I don't have that
out.
information.
Okay, thank you.
I would imagine that it would be subject to a current appraisal,
We'll find out.
because they operate independently.
Yeah, no, I realize, but I don't think the intent is for them to make.
It's a good question, we
lose
should,
money.
No, but I would just say that each board has a fiduciary responsibility to the entity to make sure that they're
Paying a fair
getting a
price.
fair market value price for property. I mean, I
right.
know it's all, it's like cousins over here, we're all interconnected. But at the end of the day, the library board has a fiduciary responsibility to the library, and they are a not-for-profit, and they operate as a not-for-profit, so they have to try and maximize what they get. And fair market value would be fair.
Well, it's an interesting question, we should hear, because on the one hand, that's true, on the other hand, the city is relieving the library from a ongoing maintenance and
Right. there's a-
other liabilities, so it's, we shall see. Public hearing on Wednesday, thank you.
We're on item number 13, page 369, also a Queens pre-hearing application, but with respect to proposed site selection and acquisition of property for the NYPD vehicle storage facility. Our presenter is Alexis Wheeler, Queens pre-hearing, page 369.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here before you again. This is a proposal for a site selection of 2 tax lots in the Mazpath area of Community Board 2. This is Block 2656, lots 75 and 80. It's for the continued use of storage of various police department vehicles, and so there will be no material changes on the site. They are adjacent parking lots, and currently one is used for storage for auction, the other is used for storage for repairs. And it's in close proximity to the central repair facility that the NYPD already operates, and was in fact established in response to some complaints regarding use of the street for vehicle storage here. And so it was meant to really respond to that need. And it's zoned M11 and is currently permitted as of right as a use. And again, as I said, there are no plans for any type of improvements on site. It does fall within the IBZ. Commissioner Efron, at the last hearing, you had asked that we get some sort of sense of industrial vacancy in this area. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist at this point. I am at least happy to report back, though, that the city has committed funds to have the IBZ providers actually start to execute surveys of the IBZs to get a sense of what current vacancies and business needs are. And so that is something that is in the works, but unfortunately, it's not something that we have any information on at this time.
Can I say something?
You certainly may.
Thank you. And as part of that surveying, do you think perhaps the city use in square footage within those IBZs could be calculated as well?
I think that's absolutely something that could be categorized and calculated.
I mean, I just want to say, there is a relatively new service provider here for this IBZ. But just in general, there's this, I think, a degree of frustration in not being able to get good data on vacancy rates, just generally in manufacturing areas, and particularly in IBZs. And one would hope, I mean, obviously, the inventory of that kind of data, unlike in commercial districts, really doesn't exist, but one would hope that service providers managing smaller areas, even on almost a door-to-door basis, could come up with that kind of data. It would be just enormously helpful to industrial policy generally.
Mhm.
So.
Agreed. And so our own HCIP will actually be providing assistance in designing the surveys themselves.
It's a big step in the right direction.
Yes.
Okay. Public hearing on Wednesday.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks, Alexis.
Our next item, item number 14, page 390. It's also a Queens pre-hearing application with respect to proposed zoning map amendment from R5B to R6B to facilitate residential development along 38th Street and 31st Avenue. And our presenter is Joy Chin, project planner in the Queens office. Item number 14, page 390.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a private rezoning application to rezone a portion of Block 659 bounded by 38th Street and 31st Avenue in Astoria, Queens, from an R5B zoning district to an R6B zoning district. The proposed zoning change would pull an existing zoning district boundary to a depth of 140 feet so that all of these lots, these 8 lots, would be all within the R6B zoning district rather than having a split lot condition. It would also help facilitate development of the applicant's property. The applicant owns 2 of the lots on this block, and they would be able to build a 5-story building with 26 dwelling units and 13 parking spaces in the rear, using in compliance fully with the R6B zoning regulations. This application was certified on March 28th, and on May 17th, Community Board 1 had their public hearing. At their public hearing, they voted 27 to approve, 13 against, with 0 abstentions to conditionally approve this rezoning. The conditions that they brought up was that the first condition, parking in the rear yard, should be fully screened, since the applicants are proposing that there will be 13 parking spaces in the rear. The second condition is that the applicant should be acutely aware of the condition of the retaining wall at the rear of the site, since there are very narrow lots on the other side of the street, on 37th Street. So those lots are only 50 feet deep, and the properties on that side of the street have said that they would like there to be regular inspections, prevent damage to adjacent residences. And then the applicant, and the third condition is that they requested the applicant and development owners should be accessible to the 37th Street owners in case any of those property owners have issues that arise during development and construction. And the applicant and the architect will be there on Wednesday, and they will address those concerns that were raised by the community. On June 2nd, the Borough President held her public hearing on this item, and they recommended approval of the application. Thank you.
Questions? Public hearing, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cantor.
Isn't that block all 1- and 2-story buildings?
Pardon?
That block, on both sides,
Yeah.
is 1- and 2-story buildings, is it not?
Yeah, right now, on the applicant's flat, it's like 2-story buildings, but there's like 2, 4, and 5-story buildings on that same side of the street. But on the other side of the street, it's on 37th Street. That's where they have the very narrow lots and are not very deep. So they're all small 1-story buildings there.
And they're looking to put 10-story buildings, 14-story buildings in there.
No, it's a 5-story building.
No, you said a 140-foot high building is gonna take 14 floors.
No, they will be building an R6B compliant building of 5 stories,
50.
50 feet.
Excuse me, did you not say something about 140 feet, or did I mishear you?
The lot depth, yeah, the lot depth is
I'm
140
sorry, I
feet.
thought I heard you
No, it's
say-
okay, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the depth, as you can see, they're really long. So they're longer than 100 feet, which is the typical, center line dimension for the Astoria, during the Astoria rezoning. Yeah, so they're just pulling.
Somewhat familiar with it, I growed up around the corner.
Any other questions prior to the public hearing? Public hearing on Wednesday. Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
Now let's move to item number 15, page 409. Also a Queens rehearing, proposal with respect to a zoning map and zoning text amendment concerning the establishment of a mandatory inclusionary housing area to facilitate over 200 units of affordable housing. We're on item number 15, page 409, Barnett Avenue rezoning, and our presenter is Scott Solomon from the Queens office.
Good afternoon. To add to Jackie, subsequent to certification, they have slightly amended their proposal due to just a change in the apartment breakdown of the sizes. It's still the same proposal, but instead of 220 units, they're now proposing 209 units to do additional larger size apartments. The site is located at 5025 Barnett Avenue in Sunnyside, Queens, Community District 2. The proposal is zoning map amendment and zoning text amendments. The zoning text map amendment is from M11 to special mixed use district, MX17 with M11 and R6 components. As proposed, 100% of the floor area would be affordable including 20% of units to be affordable to households earning up to 50% of AMI, 30% of households earning up to 100% AMI, and 50% of households earning up to 130% AMI. In addition, this will comply with their proposed option 2 of the mandatory inclusionary housing program. On this land use map, you'll see the Long Island Railroad right-of-way just to the north. We have the Sunnyside Gardens private park here, and a mix of residential and manufacturing uses here to the north. We have a few photos here. The photo on the top is facing towards, with the site on the left. Across the street here, the Sunnyside Garden Apartments, which the applicants owned since 1930. And on the site facing the east with the existing parking lot, which currently is 223 parking spaces. It's quite well served by public transportation. They have the E and F train and M and R train with the Northern Boulevard stop, and the 7 line runs on the 52nd Street stop, closest here. The proposal, as previously presented, remains at 7 stories to 10 stories, a maximum height. The top photo is an image, a rendering of the building showing the apartment facing from the south with a side view on the bottom, with a rendering of the site plan here. Previously, I was a little unclear with the portion of the decking behind here. Just to be clear, this is an open space that will be available to the residents. That will be decked above the at-grade parking just below. Below you will see here the setbacks from the street with portions articulated from around 7 feet at the nearest, 24 feet at the furthest in the open garden here. Again, the rezoning is from a M11 to a MX17 special mixed-use district with M11 and R6 components. In addition, text amendments are proposed, including to establish R6 zoning districts within MIH designated areas with an FAR of 3.6 In order to get that 3.6 FAR, you would have to go through a discretionary process as to get approval. Establishing the new MX17 district as inclusionary housing, which would receive floor area ratio regulations similar to R6 regulations. Modify height and setback regulations applicable to MX17 to allow portions within 15 feet of a narrow street to go to rise to a maximum height of 85 feet. To establish the project area as an MX17 district, and then to add an amendment to Appendix F to add the entire project area to the list of maps of MIH areas. This is a elevation showing the additional height and density that will be gained from the text amendments, represented with the shadowing over here. Across the street are 4 to 6 story apartment buildings of Phipps, which are represented here. And that, just to reiterate, there has been no changes from the proposal since certification. Since that time on the certification, March 28th, the community board on June 2nd voted 38-1 to disapprove their proposal with conditions, as did the borough president. They shared concerns, including a wish to expand the income bands, feeling it wasn't low enough for the affordability. They believe the property at 7 to 10 stories would be more suited to reflect the current scale of the surrounding neighborhood. They provided concerns that they would prefer to have union labor used in the construction and maintenance of the building. The UPK facility, which I neglected to mention at the beginning, would be set on the first ground floor at 4,800 square feet. The community has expressed concern that they would prefer alternative uses, maybe senior care. They feel like they're properly provided UPK facilities in the area, and they would like to see a variety of community facility spaces used in the space. And there is concern about the loss of parking. Currently, it's a 223 space commercial lot. The 101 parking spaces that would be located here would be accessory to the building. And that pretty much summarizes the concerns that they had issued.
Thank you. Questions? Start with Mr. Cantor.
Thank you. How long is the one building?
Sorry?
How long is the uninterrupted building?
I believe it's around 440 feet. Bear with me one moment, I have it handy. Uh, 446 feet of lot frontage.
It's 2 city blocks,
It's two city blocks going from,
uninterrupted.
yes, so we have 50th Street on the west to 52nd Street, as is the Sunnyside Apartments across the street are uninterrupted.
And what's the width of the roadway there, though?
It's classified as a narrow street, so I don't know exactly, but it's less than 75 feet.
I mean, Lincoln Terrace has a way of looking nice because it's on a wide street.
Mhm.
But I guess what's troubling me, and I'm curious as to whether the community board made any comment, I go back and forth past past City Field, and I can see a project that was recently completed by Moss, I believe. White building, looks like it's 300 or 400 feet long. It's not up for any architectural awards. If I had my way, it'd be up for some demolition awards. And I'm wondering if this will not be very oppressive, being a narrow street, being a taller building, being 2 city blocks in length with no relief.
I mean, there are variations in the setback.
Understood.
And I should mention that the community board and the BP didn't have expressed concerns about remediation for the quite deteriorated, if absent, sidewalk on Barnett. The proposal includes a complete renovation of the sidewalk, including a corridor of trees lining the sidewalk. So parts of it are without a sidewalk, and the rest that have it are quite deteriorated. This proposal would include an entire reconstruction of the sidewalk.
It's a lot of money, it's a lot of giving away to pay for sidewalks. Did this question come up at the hearings? At the borough office?
They expressed concern about the size of the building compared to the rest of the neighborhood, mostly about the height, not necessarily about the setbacks.
Put it together.
But they have expressed concern about the condition of the sidewalk.
Ms. Delauss?
A couple things just in preparation for Wednesday. I'm assuming is the community board likely to be present on Wednesday for the hearing?
I mean, I can't speak for them, but I'm sure they'll have, whether officially or unofficially, someone to represent their opposition.
Okay. Assuming they do, one thing that would be helpful, because they're expressing concern both about the height and the depth of affordability, and generally speaking, in order to get greater depth of affordability, you often need more height. So
That's the applicant's concern, is in order to provide the affordability that they're going to give, they have to attain these text amendments to increase their density.
I guess that's my question. So when you say going to give, meaning what's currently proposed or what they may be modifying? I guess we'll find out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be helpful. And then there was just a concern raised about middle school, and I'm just wondering what the environmental review showed related to impacts for that.
There was no significant impact in the EAS, but throughout the community board meetings, they have expressed a preference for a middle school. I'll let the applicant speak to how the outreach with the school construction authority.
Okay, that'd be great. And then there's mention of environmental remediation of the site. And maybe if the applicant can speak more to that as well.
Absolutely.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Ms. Efron and then Ms. Levin.
I was sensitive to the concern about some of the parking, the loss of 200 parking spots to the neighborhood and what it might do to this really pretty extraordinary historic district.
Sure.
And if either you or perhaps in the hearing context could give more clarity about whether this is currently paid parking?
It's a commercial lot.
It's a commercial.
I don't know how the business works. It may be monthly, it may be daily. I think there's advertising for daily and monthly parking outside.
And in the accessory parking, it would be exclusively for tenants in the building, or would there also be
It would be provided
public parking?
first for the residents would have, I'm assuming, would have first grabs at it, I guess. I know there's many buildings that have residential parking, and then they're allowed to let out the rest of spaces that aren't used. They propose 101 parking spaces, but they can expand it with attended parking. I think I'll allow the applicant to expand on that, but as proposed, it's 101 parking spaces.
If there is room for expansion, it would be useful to know what it is and what the limitations would be as to why not to do it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Ms. Levin.
Yes, maybe you said this while my mind was wandering to something else, but I'd like to ask a Commissioner Delauss type question, which is, what is the area median income here? The community board and the borough president both refer to the statistics of, the various income bands
Sure.
In the neighborhood, but how does that all put together to an AMI?
So I remember at the last meeting, I pulled up the area median income, but not as written in the charts for the whole area, but for the NTA, which is described as Sunnyside, Masbeth,
Right.
and for the community board. For the community board 2, it is $56,000. This is from the American Community Survey, 2009-2013, and it is $58,595 for the NTA. That's you can pull it up on our website. We have direct links to the American Community Survey.
Okay, but then the percentages that, the AMIs that are used to fulfill the housing commitment are used, they don't use those neighborhood AMIs, right? They use the citywide AMI?
HPD uses AMI as
Yeah, so
does
how do
MIH.
these numbers translate into a citywide percentage?
Well, the MIH would only use the AMI, the area median income.
Well,
not
at 60%
Yeah.
of60% of AMI would be $62,000 a year.
Okay.
For a family
Thank you,
of
that's
six.
the
I'm
question.
sorry, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 45% for a family of three, and at 80% of AMI, it would be about $62,000.
62,000 is 80.
At 80% of
80%,
AMI.
okay.
Yeah, I don't have the breakdowns of the exact number. Thank you, sir.
Ms.
Sorry.
Efron.
Sorry, but just getting back to my fellow commissioners' questions about AMI and about bans, the perception from the media is that this neighborhood is pretty rapidly changing in terms of its income. So if there is any information that would show that,
Not just current, but the how it's
might be
progressed.
valuable in helping us assess whether or not these are the right income bands, just in terms of understanding. Well, I guess you would need to know how much of it is currently affordable.
I should say that the community board expressly, they were explicit that they're concerned about the between 50 and 100% AMI. MIH component of this would be at 80% AMI. Now, that is an average, and I'll let the applicant describe how they will break it down.
I'm going to withdraw my request.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to withdraw my request.
Okay.
I don't think it's all that relevant.
So just to be clear, the applicant is proposing 30% at AMI of MIH option of 30% at 80% of AMI,
Yes, sir.
which would be for a family of three, $62,000 a year. And from what you're saying, the ACS survey for this NTA is roughly $56,000 a year for a family of three.
For the NTI, yes.
Right. But a little, right. But again, you know, that 80% is an average, so there will be people below and people above.
Exactly. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Scott? Mr. Cantor?
If I may, looking at the proposed area map and hearing some of the questions from my fellow commissioners regarding what the future may bring, right now the M1 is shown with no streets going through it. Is that accurate?
So you, over here?
Yeah, behind
So-
the building.
Maybe it doesn't represent it quite clearly. So this is the railroad, this is Sunnyside Yard.
Okay. That's the yard, so there's little likelihood then that there will be traffic up and down the sheet.
Not in the foreseeable future.
Okay, okay.
There is access north and south on Woodside Avenue here, and I believe this is 48th Street. But there's no right-of-ways going above, going out railroad right-of-way here.
You're right, it'll be a long time.
I'm sorry?
It'll be a long time before that changes.
Any other questions for Scott? I think we can anticipate a very lively hearing on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so now moving on to future votes on Wednesday. Staff have prepared favorable resolutions for the following, including the East Houston Street rezoning to facilitate commercial use in the lower east side of Manhattan. We have 70 Vestry Street, which is a special permit to facilitate accessory parking spaces. And I just wanted to note that the 227th Street rezoning in Queens that will have facilitated public parking has been withdrawn. Now, as for July 27th, we have a Long Island City Business Improvement District. We have Dylan here who is available to answer questions. Should you have any, the public hearing appears well, we have positive testimony. Looks good. Our next item is Adorama, which involves a special permit, a special bulk permit to facilitate a mixed-use development. Commissioners, you received some correspondence both for and against this proposal, and we're here to answer questions, but I believe Anita Lerma, General Counsel for the department, wants to make a statement.
I don't want to.
Let's be accurate.
I think the operative is prepared to make a statement.
I feel I'm prepared, yes. Well, good afternoon. You know, I thought that in light of the comments received at the recent public hearing and correspondence that we've received in-house relative to this application, that it would be advisable to speak to you about the department's view on the applicability of MIH to this application. As you know, the Adorama application concerns a development site in a C6 4A district in the Ladies Mile Historic District, which permits 10 FAR of residential or commercial development, bonusable to 12 FAR. The applicant is seeking a 74-711 special permit for bulk modifications to facilitate construction of a new approximately 84,000 square foot development, including 68,100 square feet of residential space. The proposed development will share a zoning lot with existing buildings that will be preserved through the special permit. Overall, the zoning lot will be developed to 8.6 FAR, well below the maximum permitted. A number of speakers argued that MIH applies in this instance, but the department disagrees with that reading of section 7432 of the zoning text. The zoning resolution and the CPC report are explicit that MIH applies only to special permits that increase permitted residential floor area. Applying MIH to a special permit that does not increase permitted residential floor area would go beyond the bounds of the law enacted by the Commission and City Council and would incur significant exactions risks. One of the threshold issues here is what is meant by residential floor area. Some would argue that this phrase refers expressly and exclusively to the actual amount of residential floor area that may be built on a zoning lot, taking into account bulk rules and other zoning constraints, as opposed to the residential floor area permitted under the zoning. Adherents of this argument point to the 1210 definition of floor area as support for this view, and reason that if one is referring to permitted floor area, one must use either the phrase floor area ratio or permitted floor area. It is very easy to see how one could arrive at this conclusion, but delving into the zoning resolution reveals that there are numerous instances where residential floor area is used to denote permitted residential floor area, as well as numerous instances of floor area ratio being denoting built or existing floor area. So thus, the meaning of section 7432 really must be governed by the clearly and consistently expressed representation of its meaning throughout the enactment of the text by the City Council. The CPC report indicates that the MIH program is not expected to be applied in conjunction with special permit applications that would reconfigure residential floor area that is already permitted under zoning without increasing the amount of residential floor area permitted. Further, at certification of the MIH special permit on September 21st of 2015, Deputy Executive Director Howard Slatkin stated that sometimes there is a standalone special permit application that comes before the commission. So for instance, an application under 74-711 to modify use regulations to facilitate the preservation of a landmark building, well, that type of special permit application where it creates residential floor area where none existed previously, we would anticipate applying this policy to it. There are other types of special permits that might just modify height and setback that apply to the existing floor area that's already allowed. We're not anticipating applying this policy where you're essentially reconfiguring the existing floor area that is allowed under zoning today. And finally, in testimony before the council on February 9, 2016, Chair Weisbrot said, where a special permit is reshaping a building, that is, not creating new floor area, not creating any new housing opportunities, but simply moving around floor area that's already permitted, we would not apply MIH. But where the special permit is creating substantial new floor area, we would apply MIH for special permits. Limiting the applicability of MIH to special permits that increase permitted residential floor area is consistent with the way MIH will apply to map changes that significantly increase permitted residential floor area. Whereas here, the 74-711 special permit is designed to permit use in bulk modifications to facilitate a preservation purpose, as evidenced in an LPC certificate of appropriateness, it is clear that the Commission's action facilitates the reshaping of a building within the district's allowable floor area ratio in furtherance of a landmark goal and as determined to be appropriate by LPC. In this instance, if the Adorama applicant chose to build a hotel or commercial building here, the special permit would not distinguish between the different permitted uses and would be allowed to use the full amount. We do not intend to distinguish in that manner either. We readily acknowledge that MIH's objective is to encourage neighborhood economic diversity. MIH is intended to secure affordable housing in conjunction with map changes and special permits that significantly increase permitted residential floor area. It does not and was not intended to apply to all actions of the commission or all developments more generally. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. Or I've cleared it up so well. Okay.
Hearing none at the moment, Anita. Let's assume the latter rather than the former. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Levin.
This isn't so substantive a question. I mean, Anita, thank you for that. I'm not sure I'm personally convinced yet, but I'll go think it through. I would like to observe that this application gives us an extreme case because the real problem is created by the sliver law and the request to waive the sliver law, which is adding significant additional development potential on the 17th Street side. And it's a pretty rare case. I don't think, if it were an application like the one that we just certified on Madison Avenue at 92nd Street, where you really are just reshaping little bits and pieces and you're not bringing about a profound change, we wouldn't be sort of at this crux. But the fact that this particular set of circumstances is creating significantly more potential for development. And I would submit that we are modifying bulk regulations. We all think of bulk regulations in terms of the floor area ratio. That is one very important bulk regulation that describes how many square feet you can put on a lot. But building envelope regulations are just as much bulk regulations that limit development, and we're providing relief from that. So anyway. When we had the public hearing, Carl, I think you invited the community board to provide some more legal, gave them an opportunity to go get a lawyer to help them think about this stuff. I wonder if we have heard from the community board, if they've had the time to do that, and whether we have the time to wait for them to give us any additional information that they might choose to provide.
Well, we've invited the community board to engage, I invited the community board representative to engage a land use lawyer who was,
Right.
I didn't direct which land use lawyer they should use, but that they should, they should engage a land use lawyer to submit a legal analysis of this, and as far as I know, they have not done so as of yet. So.
Okay. Well, I just think if we have time to if they're working on it, and we have time to let that happen, that would be useful, I think.
We have not heard that they are, in fact, working.
Okay.
on it,
Right.
So,
Fine.
I don't know if they will or not. But to your point about this being a somewhat outlier circumstance in terms of 74 7-Elevens and the sort of latitude that the development is afforded to develop additional floor area, you're right, that the sliver law absolutely makes this a unique circumstance. But, we have striven to be fully programmatic in the way that we look at these things. And, the fact that in this particular instance, the resultant building will have more residential capacity than something you could say is absolutely de minimis is really, in our view, utterly beside the point in terms of our programmatic way of looking at when MIH is applicable. In this instance, the zoning allowed in this district it has an FAR that is in excess of what we are actually unlocking. And so in our view, we don't believe that we want to begin to go down a road of analyzing what we actually are unlocking in this circumstance, because there are so many possible different permutations of how that might be handled in the LPC context that we think it would be somewhat of a fool's errand and also difficult to be absolutely clear with respect to what we.
But could I just ask about that? John made that argument to us during the review session. I'm not sure I totally understand it, because we're being shown waiver diagrams that have crosshatches of, this is the portion of the building that's being allowed by this application. Why aren't those the numbers? Why do we have to get into permutations?
Well, because those are the numbers that are specifically before us, but there are changes subsequent to this approval that could change things. Floor to ceiling heights, for example, might at some point make a difference in the way that LPC would look at the certificate of appropriateness. If you decided, for example, that you had wanted to go from 10-foot floor to ceiling heights to 8.6 floor, we don't know. We just understand that there is, beyond the absolute specifics that are shown in the drawing, possibilities of modifications within that we are not aware of at this time, that might arise, or the developer might choose to do. There's a little bit of latitude in the certificate of appropriateness and that crosshatching.
All right, but we're being asked to take an action on that set of facts. And I think it's clear enough to apply the analysis on that set of facts. Whatever happens afterwards is, I think, irrelevant if they don't have to come back to us.
I understand your point there. I just think that we are trying to be more.
I don't think that's not the hurdle here. The hurdle here is the correct interpretation of the language that would allow a significant increase in residential floor area.
Right.
That's the crux of the problem here.
No, it is,
Yeah.
and that's why I said that it's that's the critical issue. We have an analysis that I can share with you of the zoning resolution and the instances in which the phrase floor area versus floor area ratio are used interchangeably, and it shows without dispute that they are used in different ways. in
Not
different
used as
places.
crisply as
No,
we would
not at all.
like to use it here. But
Not at all. Not at all.
Ms. Deluz.
I appreciate that, and I think part of it is because this is such recent history, and obviously some of the folks who testified, including the borough president's own testimony, is like people walked away with their own interpretation of things. And I guess in order, at least for me to feel comfortable, I know that I would, because we seem to have a little bit of time, I mean, if we could push the vote back until the 10th, to me, that allows a dialogue potentially to happen, or for the additional legal review to happen, and either to come to the exact same conclusion or present us with some information that may or may not change how we have this conversation. But I know I would feel a little more comfortable. One, I would love to see your analysis in terms of that language, and two, I would just, because it is recent history, and I want to kind of respect that it was a very significant public review process, and people seem to have walked away with a slightly different interpretation. It would be helpful to have more consensus.
Although I do want to underscore what Anita said, which is that while there was testimony from a variety of different places and a variety of different ways on this issue, the staff presentation on this was explicit, and the commission report was explicit, and the testimony before the city council was explicit, so, which the council embraced implicitly, if not explicitly. So it's really, and this happens in any legislative history, is where the meaning of what was intended was presented at least by the department staff, by the departments and the commission's report, and at the city council in an unambiguous fashion as opposed to an ambiguous fashion, so.
No, I would just want to underscore that, because the sort of narrative that there was ambiguity about what this meant really is more in the context of what people sort of believe as opposed to anything that ever was stated. So if you take what we say about the meaning of this phrase and how it's used in the zoning resolution as correct, which I can show you is the case, and then you add to that every word uttered about it by any of us in the entire public review process, there's only one narrative that comes from that. There's only one. Anything else is just things that people may have thought. And so that's really something that I would also just ask you all to think about, that we have been consistent in the way that we have approached it, and it goes back to the very fundamental principles about what we think makes this program survive scrutiny on a legal basis. And that applies here as well, to there really being a substantial increase in the residential density that is allowed. So I would ask you all to think that also.
We will provide Anita's analysis, and I just want to also underscore something that we've said before. Clearly, the view of the staff and the view of the administration, which was promoted MIH in a very aggressive way, is to be within what we feel is the constitutional and legal limits and sustainable, to be as expansive and as inclusive as we can. I mean, we want to see MIH work, obviously, and we want to see it applied in a broad-based way. We also want to see, and this I do think goes to the secondary point that Commissioner Levin was raising, we do want to see it also predictable, so that applicants, communities, elected officials, and others understand as best we can when it's going to be applied and when it's not. And this is one instance. As I've said before, there are going to be instances in the future where there are going to be cases of first impression, and we're going to have to work our way through those, but we want to do them and assure ourselves that we are establishing and maintaining a framework that is both sustainable legally, but also rational, predictable, and comprehensive, really. So, thank you, Anita.
Question?
Mr. Cantor, I'm sorry. Anita can't escape that quickly.
No. Anita, the first thing I want to do is make a statement. And that is, listening to you attorneys for the past couple of weeks, I'm really pleased that I'm an engineer. Having said that, a couple of observations. One is, as you were describing the events for this particular parcel, you said, in effect, as I heard it, that all the I's are not necessarily dotted and all the T's are not necessarily crossed. There could be some interpretive opinions coming, there could be coming some unknown permutations that might occur after we do the vote. Is that correct, incorrect?
No, what I said, and it's sort of correct, what I said is that with respect to the LPC waivers, there are potentially different permutations of what might be built. within that basic
Okay.
envelope.
And my thought when I heard that was, in the current environment, I would seriously back up and look at something that has various interpretations.
But, well, then that would be almost everything that we do here, because there's always a bit of play that one has. You know, there are envelope constraints, and then there is actually what you build, things like floor-to-floor heights and other things that one might change.
Well,
That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about something fundamental with the
Well, I
application.
didn't know the limitation of your
Yeah.
comment.
Well, yeah, the comment, sorry, because LPC has issued a certificate of appropriateness, and that is the outer boundaries of what can actually.
And the other question I would have is, I think I suggested or asked about the possibility of us or the council reviewing the intent of what the council wanted when the law was finally concluded, when the law was finally passed. Because, again, I'm not a jurist, obviously, but I think intent would be, if there could be a validation of your interpretation by the colloquies that went on at the council prior to the law being approved, that could be helpful.
Well, that inquiry is limited to the legislative record, which would consist of anything that happened through the ULURP process that's part of the official record, as well as anything that may have been stated in an open meeting of the city council. That represents the full sort of body of the legislative record.
But there seems
At
to
this
be,
point, you can't actually go beyond that.
because in reading some of the correspondence on this, I was struck by the way, the same way that you were parsing words between FAR and other, and
I would just say, that it's, the legislative, was not a zoning policy or change that was rubber stamped by the city council. This was, as you will recall, this was the subject of extensive hearings, extensive colloquy, certainly back and forth with the city council. And I think that the legislative record here is clear. And believe me, as you all know, the city council certainly pored over every single line and statement that was made to it. That said, the ultimate interpretation of this is not for us as a commission, it's not for the city council, it's for, in the first instance, the Department of Buildings, and in the second instance, the courts. And that's where statutes ultimately get interpreted if they're, if someone wants to question their intent.
That's right. And the only thing I'd just add is that there's not a word or a sentence in the legislative record that refutes what we have maintained was what we were endeavoring to facilitate with this policy. There's not that. And having been through the process of negotiation with the council, there never was any, refutation of that being our goal. And as late as the council hearing, when Carl clarified that, there were it was highlighted, and there was no refutation.
thank you.
Sorry.
Ms. Levin.
But you only get to that consideration if you can get beyond the language on the page. And I can't believe I'm channeling Antonin Scalia, but, and maybe that undercuts my whole argument here, because it goes against, anyway, never mind, I won't go there. But, we do have if you look at this statute and you don't know anything about how we got there, You don't know anything about the extensive public debates that happen. You just pick this up and try to figure out, should MIH apply in this case or not? It's pretty easy. The first place when you start, you're threading your way through the definitions to a very crisp reading of the zoning resolution, which is not a crisp document at all, so that's kind of a fool's mission. But you would come to the conclusion that MIH should apply. And therefore, legislative history would be irrelevant.
Yes.
And for that, your explanation to us about
The way the words are
sloppy
used.
use
Yes.
of floor
Yes.
area ratio and floor area is very important. Because if you get to that kind of fuzziness, then you can go on to consider the legislative history.
Well, and in fact, I would just take it one step further, which is, if the language was very explicit and consistent throughout the zoning resolution, then you're right. But absent, given the interchangeability of how these phrases are used in the zoning resolution, then the explicit nature of the presentation here and testimony of the council becomes even more important.
I agree.
And I would just say as, speaking as, well, no,
Your lawyer, your counsel's telling you not to.
I was gonna say, speaking as a very lapsed lawyer, of which many of us around this table are.
You're in good company.
But in many discussions with counsel who is not a lapsed lawyer, we have to remember that sadly, perhaps, the zoning resolution and its thousands of modifications over the years since 1961 has not been written by lawyers, which is both, an unfortunate, perhaps, consequence.
Yes, I would echo that and say that Scalia would probably just say a pox on your house. This is a terrible document, just start over.
Right. There shouldn't be any zoning.
Right.
I agree.
Well,
That's what Scalia would say.
Just implore you is if anyone wants to start over, please wait until I.
That's why they only do it once every half century or so, or maybe even less than that. Thank you, Anita.
And on July 27th, we also have the 40 Rector Street office space, which was presented earlier, as well as the 230 Park Avenue office space for the New York State Court of Appeals. In addition, La Centrale was on for hearing a couple of weeks ago. That vote will be on August the 10th because of the EIS and the requirements to get voted out 10 days until the issuance of the final EIS. Sean is here, however, in case you had any questions about that particular project. Great. And then we also have 1775 Grand Concourse text amendment. It's a proposal to permit indirectly illuminated signs along commercial infill sites within the special Grand Concourse Preservation District, Community District 5 in the Bronx. And last but not least, I just wanted to mention that it's likely you will be discussing the proposed council modification for 25 Kent due to the time frame in which the council is acting. So that will likely be prior to the public meeting on Wednesday at 10. We'll meet at 10, then we'll talk about it. We will forward that correspondence as soon as we get it tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the council, I believe, the council subcommittee and the council's land use committee are voting tomorrow. As of this moment, I actually don't know what those. So we, as a department, are not yet clear about what the council's proposed modifications are, and but as soon as we are clear, we will get them to you. I'm so sorry that it just gets so jammed.
Mr. Chair?
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn so that you can all enjoy what remains of this gorgeous day.